It's funny just how much opinions on comic book movies range, and honestly, even just comic book characters in general. It's one of those things where you could hear somebody say Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man actually saved superhero movies and comic book movies and made people take them seriously, and then someone else will use X-Men or Blade or Batman and Superman, the Reeve and Keaton version at least. And it's one of those things that's so subjective, and I just think it's so ironic how many different opinions you get. It's not really like some other genres that you see around. For example, with sci-fi, it's pretty much undisputed that Star Wars is the pinnacle of that genre. Horror, it's a little bit subjective, but for the most part, you have like the main three and Michael, Freddy, and Jason. You can kind of choose from. But comic book fans are so passionate and so different that it's very interesting to see the different dynamics on who started what and what movie broke what barrier and what mold and all this other stuff. But all that is besides the point. I basically bring that up because today I want to talk about what I thought put superhero movies on the map, made people take them seriously, and and for DC especially, and that is Superman and Batman. Like I mentioned before, I'll be talking about the Keaton and Reeve versions of the characters. Obviously, they're iconic characters on their own, but there's been so many iterations that I do have to specify. I think this era, honestly, of DC was their best in live action. I think it was their golden age because you have two of your two biggest, not two of your biggest, your two biggest heroes, and you knocked it out of the park with both of them. So I really don't think DC has had another time like this. The most you can maybe compare it to is Cavill and Affleck, because while their movie wasn't great together, they were both really great versions of the characters that a lot of people seem to love, myself included. But for me, this is the best iterations and versions of these characters. It's the strongest one, at least. And while I am talking about two different characters in two different worlds, basically, I will be breaking this down by like kind of little sections on what I think makes them so special and why I love them so much. And I'm not really sure where exactly to start, other than the direction, like the vibe of the movies and the casting. Now, when I say vibe of the movie, I know that's very general and it can be kind of confusing, but what I mean is like, we'll start with Batman, for example. Tim Burton has a very unique style. It's one I'm not really a fan of. Honestly, the only things I can really say I like his style in is Wednesday and these two Batman movies he did. And it's in full force here. I mean, Gotham is something you have to get right. I've always felt like Gotham is just as important as, getting the characters themselves right, because they live in the city, and Gotham itself is such a living, breathing city in Batman's world that you need to do it right. And Tim Burton really does it right. He's got that like gothic, like older gargoyle style all around the city, mixed with some like some neon and it's just very like noir, but also like gothic take. It's very cool and very unique, and it stands out a lot. I mean, it's something everybody talks about when they talk about the Keaton Batman movies, but it is something that sets them apart from other Batman iterations. I mean, don't get me wrong, Christian Bale was a great Batman, but his Gotham was kind of plain. Sorry, it was just kind of like Chicago, honestly. Affleck's as well. I couldn't tell you anything about his Gotham, to be honest with you, because honestly, most of the shots, unless they told me, I was like, is that Henry Cavill's Metropolis? Is that his Gotham? And that was kind of the problem. That is the problem, actually, with all the other iterations of these characters. I feel like their cities are not that different or unique. Whereas with Keaton's Batman, you could show me an exterior shot of the city or an establishing shot, and I could tell you, yeah, that's Keaton's Gotham right there. And the same thing with Reeves. I mean, his Superman's Metropolis is so, I don't know how else to put it, but other than, it's Metropolis. I mean, it feels like the comic books came to life. And it's so funny because they're both such different tones. With Reeves' Metropolis, it's bright. I feel like the sky's always blue with some nice white clouds. At night, it just looks like, New York, Manhattan maybe. And you got the iconic Daily Planet globe. Like, the design of that building is just incredible. To where you could show me a picture the same as Keaton's, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's Reeves Metropolis. Like, if you told me, what comic book character's city is this, I would know. And I think most people would too. And that really, that's important because it adds life to the world. It's not just the characters you're relying on. Then you've built an exciting and interesting world that people get invested in because it seems real. And that's the whole point of the movies. That's why people go to the movies. They want to be invested and they want to be taken to another world. And I think both of these movies did that very well. And another thing I did mention was the casting. Between Reeves and Keaton, I don't think it's, a heavily debatable thing that they are one of the most iconic interpretations of the character. Now, me personally, my personal opinion, I think that they are the most iconic interpretations of the character and representations because I grew up on them, so I am a bit biased. I wasn't, a child when they were coming out. I watched them, though, on DVD when I was a child, and I mean, they're just iconic to me. Like, when I think of Batman and Superman, yeah, you think of the comic books maybe, and maybe some animated shows, but in live action, this is who I think of. I mean, starting with Keaton, he was cast, and just like, ironically enough, just like most other, if not every other Batman, he was doubted heavily, and he had to, do the role and show people why they were wrong about him. And he did. He knocked it out of the park. I mean, Pattinson recently did that, and honestly, Pattinson is maybe my favorite Batman, like, depending on the day. But overall, Keaton is my favorite, just because, he's the OG, and he kind of sets the tone for the rest of the Batman moving forward. I mean, everybody bases their takes on the original, on the foundation. So I think his take was very interesting because he's got this, like, darkness to it, but like levity as well. Like, he can kind of joke. You could see his Bruce Wayne actually being Bruce Wayne. Like, you could see him being a billionaire philanthropist, like, good with women, smart businessman. But you could also see the Batman side where even when he is Bruce Wayne, you could see that he's like a little bit psychotic. Like, he's kind of crazy, honestly. Like, especially in that first one, some of the stuff he does and the way he acts, it's like, this guy's a little bit off his rocker. And, people point out in the movie, but that's a good way to have your Batman. And it's controversial, but that's why I like Pattinson's. I like to see where his is going to grow because his Bruce Wayne is like kind of a freak. But people are mad at that. And at the same time, it's like, how do you expect that guy to be Batman? I mean, you have to expect this guy to be Batman. And it's not realistic to have a perfectly well-adjusted man who just so happens to dress like a full-size human bat at night fighting crime. So I think it's an important part of Batman's character to have that. And honestly, even outside of the animated shows, I think Keaton's is the first and best representation of that because you get both in his movie. You don't have to wait for him to grow. You just believe it. You're like, yeah, you know what? That guy could be Batman. He's kind of sketchy, but also he sells it so well that you're like, nah, no way. So I think it's just really great casting. Whoever, figured that out, I mean, props to them. And moving on to Reeves, I mean, there's not really much to say about Reeves that hasn't already been said because he is so iconic. I think him more than Keaton is most people's like, I mean, he's Superman. Even actors nowadays, they even say like, I'm not going to really try to like pass him up. I mean, I'm just going to try to do it justice because he knocked it out of the park that much. Whether you're talking about his demeanor shift, like for example, when he is Clark Kent, he is someone different than when he is Superman. And a lot of people joke about like, oh, how do people not see it? Because he wears glasses. But Reeves' performance shows you why that like trick is as unbelievable as it may seem actually works. Because when he's Clark Kent, he's fidgety, he's stuttering over his words, he's all nervous, and then he's slouched over, he has bad posture, he's just kind of overall an awkward guy, kind of like me in my everyday life. But then when he becomes Superman, he stands up straight, gets a stronger voice to him, more confidence, speaks with some deep tone, and he exudes like Superman. You know, he's just a guy you wouldn't want to mess with, and that's all while he's still in like a suit, not the Superman suit. So that right there, I mean, that's everything you need in Superman, because I feel like that has inspired many performances beyond that, where people are forced to play two sides to the same coin, you know, as far as a character goes. I think it's impressive because it does stand the test of time. One of the things I mentioned was like their worlds, and while Reeves' world is boring, or not boring, I'm sorry, cheesy. Most people might find like boring, that it is so cheesy and it's not as edgy as, you know, Cavill's or something. I think there's a lot of charm to it, and you know, while some things like that may not hold up as well to this day, Reeves' performance undoubtedly does. And that's so important, because getting your main characters right is everything. I mean, we're going to talk about the other stuff, but the two main characters have to be right. And I just think it's awesome to have such great actors playing the roles. You know, neither one of them are really assholes outside in real life. I feel like they both honestly could be their characters if it were like somewhat realistic or possible. I think they could both be their characters truly in real life. Now, next up, we're going to be talking about the design of the movies. I kind of touched on it a little bit with the cities, but this will mainly be like the costumes and the set designs and the the stuff like that. Specifically, Christopher Reeves. I just love the suit, man. It's so good. Like, people talk about how cheap it looks or how simple it is, but that is like, to me, that's like the point. I mean, in the comics, Ma Kent makes his suit multiple times. You know, she makes it from hand, and Reeves' suit looks like something that could be made by hand. It's just spandex, but it's one of those things where it's like sometimes less is more, you know? And when I think of Superman, and specifically like the color scheme, that suit literally is what I think of. And not by choice or not by like force, it's just involuntarily that is what I think of. Those colors are so bright and vibrant, and those exact color schemes are like literally what I think of and what I need in a Superman suit. Because I've loved Henry Cavill's suit, but to be honest, I do like the brighter suit. And even the spandex, you know, you could say it looks cheap or corny, but to me, that is like Superman. I mean, he is a god. He's an alien with godlike powers who is basically invulnerable. So a lot of people make fun of the trunks, and James Gunn has stated in his new movie that's the reason he included the trunks, the one I'm about to list right now, which is, you know, he wants to, a person like that needs to be, you know, I guess friendly to children, or like look like he could be like a friendly and approachable guy, especially from a kid's point of view. And I understand that. I actually do agree with that, and that's why I love Reeves' version, because he doesn't have like all this padding. He doesn't have all this like unnecessary designs and like lines all over the suit. I know that's like a complaint with modern superhero movies anyways, is like the over design. But his is simple, you know, just spandex. A normal guy in spandex, but with the powers of a god. And I think it's just amazing. And I can't really put it into words, but his suit, him and Keaton, both of their suits, they just feel like, I don't know if you've ever been to Six Flags, but if you go to Six Flags and you go to the DC section, it just feels like that. And I know that won't really make a lot of sense, if any, to anybody, but to me that is exactly what it feels like, and I love it. I mean, a lot of the points I have to make in this video are going to be like that, where it's like, I can't really explain it, but it's just a feeling I get. And there's really no other way to put it. Speaking of Keaton, his Batsuit, there's a lot more that can be said against it. Definitely as far as like the movement goes and how awkward he looks in it when he's like fighting, which I cannot, disagree with, because it does look awkward. And he's even said it was awkward. But the design of it is just so good, especially for the world he's in. I mean, I can't really picture Keaton wearing a different Batsuit in that world at that time. It's shown in the Flash movie that he has multiple Batsuits, which is awesome because that's part of Batman. Superman, more so of a, one and done kind of guy, but unless he dies and comes back to life. But Batman has multiple suits, and he always has in the comics, and that's always like a fun thing to look out for. But this suit just fits so well in the universe. The leather, the The black and the yellow. I mean, again, when I think of Batman, I think of this exact like color scheme. I think of black and yellow. It's just how it is for me. I love the other colors, don't get me wrong. I love all of his bat suits. But the black and yellow will always be the OG for me, and it's because of this movie. This movie ingrained into my brain a lot of the fundamental things I believe in these characters and the way I view these characters. And that's just a testament to their what they brought to the genre and what they offer. Now, moving on, I'd like to talk about the characters. Specifically the characters surrounding our heroes, even if it includes the villains. Joker is an obvious one with Keaton's, where it's like Jack Nicholson for me is still my favorite Joker, and it's just because it's just preference. I mean, I feel like the Joker is a little bit more of a debatable topic, whereas like it's very much dependent on preference because they're so different. I mean, Nicholson's Joker is more of like a mob boss gangster guy, whereas Heath Ledger's is more of like a psychotic, watch the world burn, anonymous, type of dude who's just in it for chaos. And they both share elements, but I just think Nicholson's is iconic. And he really, really, really reminds me of the animated series Joker, which I'm pretty sure they did base off his performance. Even aside from the Joker, I mean, Keaton's Alfred is my favorite Alfred. He's the most you just look at him, you're like, that's Alfred. The way he talks, his age is perfect. He gets around good still. He's not the Alfred where he's like, an expert in hand-to-hand combat, which, you could have your opinion on that. Me personally, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I could see the appeal. But I just like the more, nurturing, caring Alfred, like butler slash, kind of surrogate father figure type thing. I think, Keaton's Catwoman was incredible. She's my favorite Catwoman. Even though we've only had, 3, I think she is the best. As much as I love Zoe Saldana's portrayal of Catwoman, I just think, Michelle Pfeiffer's is 10 out of 10. His love interests are pretty good, Vicky Vale, stuff like that. His Jim Gordon is okay, not the most memorable. He's not like the animated Jim Gordon, but, he's pretty good. So I think Keaton has a great world around him, built up. And Reeves, honestly, I think Reeves' Superman has even stronger characters. His Lois Lane is the definition of iconic. I mean, talk about a strong female character who's not not in a bad way, not, towards force. I mean, she's just strong, smart, fierce woman. And it's awesome. Her character is awesome. She's likable. The actress is likable. He's got his Jimmy Olsen, who's also very likable. His Lex Luthor is very good. His Perry Brown, Superman is kind of more of a character who leans into his supporting characters more, because Batman is obviously known more as a hermit and a lone wolf type of character, especially compared to Superman. So it's important for Superman to have great side characters, which he definitely does in those movies. I think a lot of them are memorable, and they, like I said before, with multiple things in this video already, but they've set the standard, and it's true. I mean, that's why I'm saying, this is the golden age for DC, because a lot of this stuff just set the groundwork for where they go and what they kind of become and get into. So it's really it's just really awesome to see something. You can see where something started, essentially, because the comics are great and comics are very helpful, and they definitely played a part, but the comics didn't make these movies what they are. The movies themselves took on almost an identity of their own, which is really something great. You don't really see it a lot today where something stands out so much where you're like, wow, this will be remembered for the next 50 years to possibly, however long. And that's what these movies did. And that's the other thing I wanted to kind of get into a little bit before I ended the video, was just the overall craze around these movies, and what they did for the genre. As I mentioned earlier, it's debated, oh, this movie made people take superheroes serious, or this saved the genre, or this gave it its legs. But truly, I do believe this is the definitive, like, these two are the definitive movies that are the reason we get superhero movies that we get today. You can thank Blade and X-Men, and that definitely has its merits, but these two, I mean, seriously, they were so ahead of their time. And as I mentioned earlier, Batman, like this Batman made people take Batman serious. I mean, before him, it was the Adam West Batman. So Keaton's was definitely a darker, more serious take on the role. And this was the first kind of forays, I guess, or jumps into the comic book movies, because, you know, comic books before were just comic books and nobody really thought they could be movies. But thanks to the teams that put these together, they turned into what they've become. And the craze was insane. I know because my uncle is obsessed with Superman, and he was alive when both these were coming out, and you couldn't avoid these movies. You could not avoid the Bat logo or the Bat symbol. You couldn't avoid the merchandise, the toys, the shirts, the lunch boxes, the showings at the movie theaters. I mean, it was on the marquee for God knows how long. It's crazy the impact that this had, especially when it's like, you know, we weren't living in a time where it was like, well, the MCU's been around, so yeah, naturally they would do good. No, I mean, this was a bold step for, you know, each studio, and it was kind of a really bold one for Batman, like I said, because the last Batman we got in live action was one that danced and fought sharks off with shark repellent and went surfing against the Joker. So it was quite the shift, but it's the shift that it needed, and it was almost like a shot in the arm for the genre. And I really don't think we would have comic book movies the way we do today without these, because it showed people that audiences would watch it and they take this serious and they want to see more, and they want to see these worlds evolve. And I think these movies have a lot of, you know, they deserve a lot of thanks, because they've truly made movies, comic book movies, what they are today. And I think there's a lot of credit there that hasn't really been given. I mean, obviously they're iconic, like I've said before, but I feel like nowadays especially they're kind of being forgotten about in just the like level of impact they've had, especially if it's something like where it's like you're talking about Marvel movies. I feel like people can only compare Marvel movies to Marvel movies, but it's okay to say that like DC had an impact on Marvel or vice versa. And I do think that's the case here. DC has such strong characters, such strong worlds and villains. I think it's kind of crazy that they haven't been able to nail it in the past 20 years. You know, with the whole like expansive universe thing that Marvel did, that is like a home run for them. And in reality, DC should not have struggled the way they did. The past 20 years as a DC fan, for live action that is, has been rough to say the least. And, you know, it's one of those things where it's like you look at the characters you have, and building a universe should be the least difficult thing you could possibly do. I mean, the blueprints are there. Look at these original two movies that I've been talking about this whole video. Look at Justice League, the animated show, or the animated series, Justice League Unlimited. Look at Teen Titans, the animated show. I mean, just do what you do in animation in live action. You know, cast some good actors that can play the roles for the test of time, and just do that. Sorry, I get passionate because I've loved this stuff since I was a kid, and I'm just frustrated because I love the MCU, but my first real like superhero love was DC, and it's just frustrating to not be able to see it come to fruition really well. I mean, obviously Justice League was a mess. Zack Snyder's Justice League was way better in my opinion, but it's still not the Justice League I wanted to see. And I'm hoping that one day we get it. Who knows? James Gunn's new universe is kicking off with Superman, or I think it is. I don't know. I feel like it's kicked off like 5 times now, and it's like been changed. Like the goalpost has been moved because all the projects before have failed. He's like, no, actually, it starts here. So we'll see. I do wish it well. I want both comic book, you know, brands to do well, Marvel and DC. I want it all to work. I want it all to thrive, because I'm a comic book fan. I think any comic book fan can relate to that and feel that. So yeah, if you enjoyed what I had to say, let me know. If you didn't, I mean, I'm sure people will let me know. I'm sure I don't have to say that. if you disagree, there's nothing wrong with that. Remember, this is just my opinion on these two films and what they've done for the genre and the culture of comic book movies as a whole. I'm not saying my opinion is the end all be all, obviously. I don't know what I'm talking about half the time. But I do know I am passionate about this topic specifically. I love these movies, and I just kind of wanted to talk about them today because, Superman's coming out, like I said, so I figure it's a perfect time than ever to bring it up and hopefully start some discussion about it because I think these two movies deserve way more love. Obviously, they already get a lot, but, I don't think there's ever such a thing as too much love for something that deserves it.